Hello, Ryan here, aka Mac, and welcome! Today I will be breaking down the Persistent Universe monthly report, so you don't have to. As always, a huge thank you to all of my patrons and channel members. Thank you all so much for the support, it is truly appreciated, and if you do enjoy my videos, please do consider subscribing and helping the channel to grow. So, kicking off this report with the ship art team, they approached the end of their work on the Argo SRV, with the final art phase now in progress, which includes level of details and damage passes, and is expected to conclude with the final gate review in March. So very nice, a great ship that I think will have a rather large role in the Persistent Universe now that Persistent Entity Streaming is coming in. So here's hoping the SRV will come to the PU soon, as there will be plenty of ships lying around for moving out the way. The team are also continuing to work on an unannounced ship, which passed its level of detail 0 review gate and is well into final art, so it should be a new straight-to-flyable ship. A new variant moved into the LOD 0 phase as well, after passing its grey box review in January, with detailing work on the exterior and interior ongoing. Not sure which one this is, but a new variant could be very interesting to suit current and upcoming gameplay options perhaps. The Crusader Spirit continued through Greybox, with a review gate taking place at the end of the month, with the team saying, while there are still a few visual design tweaks to be made, the Spirit is looking in great shape for the review. And it sounds like it's coming along pretty quickly, so not sure when this is going to be implemented. The team also looked at the Hull C to fix any visual issues that occurred during the ongoing technical setup. The Hull C certainly has a lot of technicalities to set up, quite a complicated ship by the sounds of things. The MISC Freelancer is undergoing some interior tweaks to accommodate physicalized components, so don't expect anything too significant on the interior here, just small alterations to ensure that all the components have their places. Now, Greybox on an upcoming vehicle progressed, with testing done simultaneously on the modelling process to see if the team can reduce the level of detail impact on production once they arrive at the final content phase. So another new straight-to-flyable ship here, which could be this MISC Fury. What is the MISC Fury? Is there a MISC Fury? Who knows? It is all just speculation at this point. The Apoa-san Tokiai is currently in the Greybox stage and is undergoing significant testing to see how far the team can take the secondary motion, and this secondary motion is the blend space stuff, just to give it that subtle movement that will be also applicable to many other ships, as well as ships with VTOL thrusters, allowing the VTOLs to move in a realistic manner according to the direction or the input of direction that the players are putting in. For the Arena Commander features team, they continued laying the foundations for an upcoming patch, which included further work on the spawning and racing systems refactor and the delivery of the refactored rounds module, along with long-awaited bug fixing and quality of life changes. And in all honesty, I am really starting to look forward to these updates to Arena Commander. I do feel they will be a nice break from the PU when you don't have too much time and you just want to practice stuff. The team is also focused on the conversion of the new Stanton location into Arena Commander, which will feature all standard game modes bar Classic Race, with the team saying this location, which we will talk more about as we get closer to release, has the team tackling some unique challenges with taking Persistent Universe locations that'll help ease the process for future endeavours. So it sounds like it's potentially a combat-orientated environment. Could be the Jericho Station, which we did see a snippet of during the Inside Star Citizen highlighting the Arena Commander team, but equally it could be just an entirely new location altogether. Talking of new locations, the team also began work on an all-new atmospheric dogfighting arena, which will be the first truly atmospheric map in Arena Commander. Now this has me very excited, especially as soon all ships will have this new aerodynamic update to make them all fly more realistically in atmosphere, so this new map will be great practice to see how they feel for us to get used to it, but also likely to help tune and balance all the ship's behaviours as they go forwards. Now next up we have the character and weapon features team. They began looking at lockers and how best to create outfits as a predefined collection of items that can be equipped or worn in a single action, which will be very helpful when wanting to change into a full outfit or change your outfit, being able to kind of preload a mannequin perhaps with an outfit that you want to change at speed. Now the team say that they are currently looking at a combination of the item port and inventory systems to store and display large to small items. For example, a coat may appear on a hanger just like in the ships, whereas a small accessory item or weapon attachment could go into an inventory drawer. Now, I really like the sound of this, having drawers for different items, which could be more defined by the room you're in. For example, if you're in your homestead and you're in your bedroom, then the accessory drawer could hold clothing items, whereas if you are in your armory, it could be weapon accessories like sights, silencers, and so on. Or maybe if you're in your garage, you could have a drawer for ship subcomponents and stuff like that. Now, another inventory aspect in progress is allowing players to perform a reload directly from a backpack or pocket. So, for example, if ammo isn't directly available from your suit, then players can perform a slower reload where it's retrieved from their inventory. So as long as you have spare ammunition stored in your backpack or in your pocket, you can reach for it. Now, I do like this direction. It certainly seems that the Star Citizen FPS side is moving more towards that of Tarkov in many aspects. Star Citizen is going to get to the individual bullet level of interaction, and being able to condense and sort magazines with remaining ammo one day, but I also hope that they can do a similar Escape from Tarkov reload mechanic, where maybe if you press the reload button once, you place that spent magazine back into your inventory, whereas if you double tap the reload button, you will perform a quick reload, releasing the magazine onto the floor while simultaneously loading a new magazine into the weapon. I feel that Star Citizen's persistent universe needs that level of detail for the skill element and getting the upper hand based on your abilities. So I'm very excited to see the FPS side of Star Citizen just improve and get a lot of quality of life updates, and being able to reload from a backpack or a pocket slower is a step in that direction. Anyway, onto the gameplay features team. They continued their work on the tractor beam, enabling ship owners to protect their ship items by locking them using lock exterior functionality. Now this, I presume, is intended for, say, engineering gameplay, ensuring that your components and ship weapons or inventory is locked away, if they are accessible from the outside, of course. They are also adding an interaction to the Greycat multi-tool that will detach unlocked items from the ship to allow more control over detaching. Now, I love the sound of this. Having the multi-tool hopefully connect to the item rather than just another laser attachment, preferably. Being able to connect two items like ship weapons or components and then use that to unlock them and remove them from your ship to then maybe place on the floor and replace it with another option. I am also expecting the weight of the item to matter here, like maybe anything above size 3 or even size 3 and above will not be removable with just the multi-tool by hand and may require more of a specialized piece of equipment like a crane or a tractor beam perhaps. But at least being able to physically swap out your size 1 or size 2 weapons on your cutter, for example, removing and replacing them by hand will be so cool. So now engineering gameplay is progressing very well. This is getting to that step of making the components physicalized and in the ships for us to remove. Now, it goes on to say that the team expanded on the hollow outline that weapon features provided to get clear feedback on the attaching rules for ship items, with the QA teams working on that along with the new mining updates coming in Alpha 3.19. So Star Citizen is slowly becoming more and more physicalized, and it won't be long until we are able to remove and replace our ship items and our components by hand. So, talking of which, the team continued their work on the resource network, which it is now known as engineering gameplay, and the team will provide a more in-depth look into this feature in an upcoming Inside Star Citizen. So very much looking forward to this episode, and it's likely now being referred to as engineering gameplay, as it probably just incorporates all aspects of engineering and not just the prototyping of how the system works. It is a huge system that will affect every one of us, as we all have at least one ship, and in the future likely more, plus homesteads and gameplay allowing us to interact, sabotage, or repair these systems. Now, moving on to the cargo refactor, the team now have several goals. Firstly, it is to convert all the existing cargo render proxy to actual physical entities for each cargo container, and this will then enable them to be manually added and removed from the cargo grid using the tractor beam, basically making all the boxes physicalized. Also, they want to convert all commodities, minerals, and harvestables to the new resource type, which requires refactors to the mining and refining systems to ensure they work with the resources. Hopefully this also includes the saddlebags. They also want to recreate the commodity kiosks using building blocks UI to give greater flexibility with future changes, ensure that all missions that use any form of cargo, usually in the form of two-handed entities, still work with the new cargo system, and work with the ship's team to mark up all cargo grids to also use this system. So quite a bit to do there for the cargo refactor, but hopefully they are well underway now working on this stuff, and we can see the major benefits of all cargo being physicalized and what that means for hauling, for missions, and for piracy as well. Now it goes on to say that the PU team worked closely with the EUPU gameplay team to ensure that the conversion worked not only with the mining and refining systems, but also to ensure that the new salvaging system worked with the new resource system. Lots of new systems, or updates to existing systems, to bring it all in parity. Now, moving on to the mission features team. They worked to improve Klesha, the prison, which included changing the stashes to lootable containers to allow them to put whatever item they want inside them, such as rarer contraband. So now they can contain an amount of contraband that the players can return for merits, offering more non-violent ways to reduce your sentence. Now, in light of these new updates to gaining merits in prison, the team has increased the cap on prison sentences to further punish those committing numerous felonies. Although the lighter sentences will remain the same, they're basically punishing the more serious crimes while making escape more appealing. So nice to give a bit more to the prisons, because as much as they are seen as more of a punishment to encourage pirates to be cleverer with what they do, it is also important that when you go to prison, you're not just logging out. You actually stay in there, you serve your time, or you try and escape, or you do something inside the prison. It needs to be gameplay in itself. Now, several unannounced missions continued to be prototyped, one of which sees players escorting ships as they quantum travel and land at various locations, potentially allowing players to board and carry out tasks. So very interesting, and this sounds like it means NPC ships rather than player ships, because obviously we can already quantum travel, but it could likely refer to both. But I love the idea of being able to be on board another ship, an NPC ship, for a mission with purpose other than, say, manning a turret. Now, finally, for the mission features team, they actually inherited the reputation system, with the team beginning to design out the system as a whole, alongside prioritizing which work comes first. Now, this is actually great news. Firstly, it makes sense that the mission team have control of this reputation system, as reputation, of course, directly influences what missions you have available. But also, the system has been somewhat stale of late, not really getting expanded upon much, so now it is with a new team with long-term and short-term plans for missions. They can definitely take it to where it needs to go. For the vehicle features team, for future releases, new features were added to the flight system, and some older systems were refactored in support of one of the ship team's unannounced vehicles. Very sneaky, not sure which ship or vehicle this is, but I'm sure we will hear about it soon enough. Finally, for the vehicle features team, the MISC Hull C received a significant amount of low-level tech updates as the team worked through its issues. I do feel, as I said earlier, that the Hull C will be quite a technical marvel. It has had to wait for a lot of new tech to be developed from the ship teams to make it plausible, and when it finally comes along, it is going to be pretty prevalent, I reckon, as it is one of the economic backbone ships. And when this game is ready for that level of hauling, we will see the Hull series everywhere. Now, next up, we have the graphics, visual effects programming, and Planet Tech team, and it says they continue to close out the final tasks for the Gen 12 renderer before they transitioned to assisting in the completion of the Vulcan Graphics API. Now, I suppose one benefit of 3.18 taking its sweet damn time to release is that it's given the teams working on it time to optimize it and get it ready for Vulcan, and hopefully we are going to see Vulcan roll out pretty soon, as this API is said to bring some of the greatest performance improvements, and unlock loads of other stuff, like VR and ray tracing, amongst other things. Now, the damage map system and legacy lens flare was converted to Gen 12, alongside initial support for HDR, very happy to hear that. Support for TSAA is currently being added, which they say will significantly improve visual quality, especially for hair, and the team also submitted the first iteration of the new render layer feature to allow easy customization of objects in the world, for use with game features such as scanning and the minimap. So lots of updated features are actually on the way once it's all been finished up with in Squadron, like scanning, radars, the signature system, and the various map types. Huge quality of life updates when they get implemented into the PU, and from what we've heard, they're coming along very well. Now, the team also provided lighting support to allow planets in the StarMap to appear both lit and holographic in a single pass, For the tools team, work was started on a new mesh format, with the goal being to vastly improve loading times and render performance. For the visual effects programming team, their time was split between fire, quantum travel, and tools work. For fire, work began on decal shading to achieve glow, burn, and soot on objects within the scene. And fire is going to be such a force to deal with, I feel. The level of detail and realism they are going to for this system sounds pretty huge, and it'll be both scary and potentially useful as well. Now for quantum travel, it now has support for quantum casting and redshift, along with various other code improvements. No idea what either of those are. And then for the tools, usability improvements continued and support for referencing particle effects from other particle effects were added. Now for the Planet Tech team, they worked on better shaping support for asteroid fields, improvements to the harvestable system, and adding support for instancing to terrain chunks. And finally, the team worked together on a new water system, which it says is still in the early stages, but aims to allow GPU wave and ripple simulations at multiple scales, as well as network-synced impacts for larger events like spaceships crashing. Plus, shading improvements were made to achieve better reflections, refractions, and foam. Now this sounds really interesting. Having ships crashing into bodies of water and creating waves and splashes that everyone on the server can see will be so great, and combined with the physical damage and breakability tasks that they are working on, this will enable players or NPC ships to create impact craters and terrain wakes as they crash into the planets in real time. It'll be quite a crazy moment to witness ships just slapping into the ground or even into water, especially when you are trying to explore them in water. It'll just feel like Subnautica. Now for the in-game branding team in Montreal, their work on Lorville's Cityscape update is coming to an end, plus they began their tasks for Pyro's Ruin Station, firstly creating the visual identity of the gangs and their environments. For the Interactables team, they also continue to work on Pyro, creating more Ruin Station assets, with the team saying, "There's more work to be done on this mandate, but we have some really interesting interactable props that we can't wait to share." The team also worked with the Mission Features team on new assets that players will be interacting with around the verse, and progressed with Flare that will reach players at some point in the year. For the lighting team, they finished their work on the Lorville Skyline rework as well, after which they moved fully onto the Colonial Outposts, with the team saying, "This is a significant undertaking with many pieces that we need to get right." And it'll be nice to see these various outpost types come to fruition. There will be farmers, traders, gangs, abandoned, just general settlers as well. I do wonder if we can clear them out and live in them ourselves. For the Montreal Live Tools team, they successfully implemented the first version of the entity graph into the Network Operations Center, which is a major milestone in supporting persistent entity streaming, which as we know is coming with 3.18. Next, it says the team will start on the design and development of new Network Operations Center modules for server meshing. So moving on to the EU locations team, they completed the exteriors of Seraphim Station and 3 Stanton jump points. Quite interesting they name drop a Pyro station like that. Not sure where the name originates from or why it's called Seraphim Station, as the only piece of lore that mentions Seraphim is that Crusader Industries used to be known as Seraphim Systems. So I do wonder if it has anything to do with that, or whether the name is just a coincidence. Also, interesting to learn that they are working on all 3 of Stanton's jump points, which include Stanton to Pyro, of course, Stanton to Magnus, and Stanton to Terra. Now, it is not likely that these other systems are coming anytime soon, outside of Pyro, but getting the jump point locations established ahead of time is probably what they're doing here. Anyway, moving on. The locations team also approached final art on the asteroid cluster for the Resource Rush mission, and the team is working on the last few modules to close out Content Pack 3, which will enable them to construct and distribute Pyro's small to medium outposts. So a couple of things to point out here. I think this Resource Rush mission could be a new dynamic event, although I would have thought they would state it's a dynamic event. So it could be referring to the new mining contract broker missions. I'm not sure there. But in regards to Content Pack 3, I think this could be referring to improvements to the Rastar tool, which is CIG's base building tool, likely having more assets implemented, overlays, that kind of stuff, at the request of the locations team to get more variety in outposts, perhaps. Now, tasks progressed on Ruin Station and the underground facilities, Ruin Station being the hero landing location of Pyro, which is why we're hearing about it a lot now. The organic team prepared and hardened some of their cave initiatives and began looking into additional biome work. It'll be nice to actually have missions hooked into the harvestables one day. Maybe NPCs asking players to gather X amount of a type of fruit or item. They will certainly be needed for crafting when that finally comes along. And I'm sure there is plans for many more harvestables than what we have now. The design team worked on new missions for Pyro's outposts, and the team also began investigations towards achieving gold standard outposts, which produced several feature requests to facilitate new and interesting gameplay loops in Pyro relating to the resource network and reputation system. So, quite interesting, this gold standard outpost. It likely consists of its full engineering system, like power, life support, and so on, that can be interacted with, and if it's involving reputation, then it sounds like it could also be relating to the various occupants that we might find at each outpost, building rep with the individuals, as well as the gangs or groups as a whole. Now, for the narrative team, they started turning their attention to the next patch and beyond, with several items of clothing and vehicles getting branded and named. Work also continued on the upcoming salvage, mining, and investigation missions, while improvements were considered for Bounty Hunting version 2 and the Contract Manager. So, as always, it all starts with narrative and getting things like bounty hunting more established in the lore to help set up the gameplay teams on delivering the upcoming bounty hunting improvements, which are slated for this year, by the way. Now, the team also continued to refine and work towards the gameplay for Pyro system, with the team saying, seeing how the system's lawless nature has the potential to enhance existing gameplay loops has been very exciting for us. Narrative also coordinated with other teams on the building interiors, which we saw concepts featured on Inside Star Citizen recently, and progress was made on narrative lootables, like journals, articles, and messages that players might one day discover as we explore the verse. So 100% yes to that idea. I love the idea of travelling around, maybe off the beaten track. Finding something that leads to something special will be such a great experience. For example, there are many ships and civilians that have gone missing throughout the last 900 years. That will be left for players to one day discover and then go down in history as the ones to close the book on that. This, I guess, might be the starting point of that, providing a small reason to explore. But I don't want it to be easy. I want it to be a bit of a challenge to find, or at least follow the clues. Now, finally, for the narrative team, the designers continued to work on expanding and improving player interactions with certain NPCs, which would be very nice, as any mission giver that I speak to is not really in a good place right now. So, for the Montreal Online Services team, they completed the development of Shard Isolation and the Shard Broker, with PTU testing beginning for both. These new features, it says, are used for isolating push workers and shard health and life cycles, with the goal being to maintain shard integrity. So all part of the work for server meshing, and great to hear that they are testing this stuff. They also worked on the Entity Graph service to allow for faster response times and less load on the database, which also increases the overall read and write performance of the Entity Graph service itself. The team performed a refactor for insurance, ASOP terminals, the VMA or the Vehicle Manager app backend, and game code, with the goal of improving performance and fixing some long-standing bugs, which is great to hear because ASOP terminals in particular have had their fair share of annoying and sometimes game-breaking bugs. So any improvements in all those systems really would be a big win. Now, for the UI team, they worked on several future features, including an interactive 3D UI prototype, a universal marker for the StarMap, and concept for some updated vehicle UI setups. So nice to hear more StarMap progress, and a map marker is certainly something we need. But for this 3D UI, although I'm not sure what it is for, we did see some very cool UI work on Inside Star Citizen a few months back, and it really shows the potential for UI in a 3D space. And for the vehicle UI, one day we will be saying goodbye to this universally shared ship HUD UI, and hello to bespoke manufacturer-specific UI, which will make a huge difference in ship appreciation. Now, UI tech progressed in various areas, including creating a color picker UI for interactive screens, plus they continue to help polish the new StarMap, adding space dust to make it easier to perceive movement, improving controls, and creating cubic hollow volumes. So great news that they are now polishing the StarMap and improving its controls, as these are only possible once the bulk of the work is done and the majority of the features are implemented. So here's hoping that we get to see this new StarMap any day now, and I am expecting when we do, it'll be a whole dedicated show for it, if not a whole dedicated week to showing it off. And finally, we have the visual effects team. They continue to work on the CPU to GPU particle library conversion, which is said to have been good practice for some recent new starters in the team, helping them to get a better understanding of many attributes accessible from the VFX editor. They also continued to refine the new quantum travel effects and began work on several new vehicles, including one with unusual thrusters, which I expect is referring to the Apoa Santokiai. And then finally, the team carried out improvements to Lorville's skyline effects, adding more smoke and general ambience to help sell the industrial theme. And I am very much looking forward to the new Lorville in Alpha 3.19 whenever that arrives. So there you go. I hope you managed to make it through that. It is almost 30 minutes in length for the record. In fact, it's over 30 minutes. If you did, give yourself a pat on the back. I truly appreciate you being here. But some great, exciting stuff coming along. Can't wait to see it all unfold into the verse. I am going to promptly end this episode so you can go to the toilet, go and get a drink, do what you need to do. And if you do appreciate my videos, please do consider subscribing. Also, come and hang out over at twitch.tv/supermacbrother. You are all more than welcome over there. We are going to be kicking off on both YouTube and Twitch a new Zero to Hero series when 3.18 goes live. And for YouTube, it is going to be a bit of a hardcore series where I don't start with a functioning ship. Anyway, hit the thumbs up if you don't mind. It does the channel a big favor. Tick that notification bell if you would like to be notified when my videos go live. Big thank you to my patrons and channel members. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.